afternoon and welcome to Biztech Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Al Rajhi Bank Malaysia. Our guest today is Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management out of Singapore. Now, Kian Soon, as always, thank you for coming on the show.
A very good afternoon.
Now, before we get your insights, let's take a look at how crypto markets are performing first. Bitcoin is at above the 40,000 mark. It's at 40,070. It's up 0.43%. Ethereum is at 3,055.78. It's up 1.85%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, Kian Soon will start close to home for you at the SGX. It's at 3,351.6. It's up 0.64%. Now, over at the KLSE, it's at 1,601.27. It's up 0.26%. Shanghai is at 3,199.14. It's down 0.44%. The ASX All Ordinaries is at 7,763.3. It's up 0.36%. The Nikkei is at 26,728.5. It's up 1.49%. The Hang Seng is at 21,306.8. It's down 0.06%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is at 2,703.79. It's up 1.39%. So, Kian Soon, what's your view on market performance across the region for the first half of the day?
I think for the first half of today, most of the markets are in the green, with the exception of Hong Kong and China, which is, I would say there's very little corrections. I think probably Asian markets are absorbing the news coming out of the United States rather well on the CPI numbers.
Okay, now speaking of the CPI numbers, they came in at US inflation numbers then came in at 8.5% in March, which is basically the number which has increased by the most in 16 and a half years. Now, what's your view on how this will impact measures that are coming from the Fed in the next couple of months?
I think first of all, the actual CPI headline numbers came very close to what was forecast. So it was something within the expectations of the market. And secondly, I think the market has also sort of accepted that this high number is very close to the peak. If you ask me when is the peak, I'm not sure, but there's definitely the CPI numbers are peaking. So in terms of the reactions from the central banks, it's quite apparent that Fed has outlined a very aggressive introductions of interest rate hikes. It's more likely to be 7 to even as high as 9 times, 10 times this year. Starting from the current base of 0.25%, Fed has actually, give signals that it could go up to as high as 2.5%. I think they are definitely, motivated and committed to get this inflation under control. So we could expect, like what we said, since the beginning of this year, rate hikes galore this year, and the only uncertainty is how many percent we are going to end by end of 2022.
Okay, looking at the calendar this week, we have a lot of central bank announcements. Now, today we had the Reserve Bank of New Zealand announcing its decision to raise the official cash rate by 50 basis points to 1.5%. Now, that's the biggest rate hike in more than 20 years. Now, on the flip side of the equation, we've got Treasury yields, which are at, the 10-year yields at 2.7498, and the 2-year yield is at 2.4362. Now, this is all before the inflation numbers were announced. What is therefore your view on rates and currency expectations around the Asia Pacific region in the short term?
I think going forward, the central banks in Asia, even around the world, are all playing catch up because they are not totally in sync, playing catch up to US rate hike cycles. And, we could definitely expect most countries in Asia Pacific to start increasing interest rates. If that is how central banks are managed. I think for countries like Singapore, which manages foreign exchange, we can also expect a more aggressive stand on the forex and basically the upward slopes for SNIA is going to be adjusted accordingly as well. So definitely there will be different lapses and cycles going forward. I think the only exception would be I'm looking at would be Greater China. I think China, given the current economic slowdown due to the COVID situation, it's very likely that instead of tightening, you will see monetary easing, as well as announcements of stimulus package for China specifically, so that the economy doesn't come to a standstill.
Now, Kian, so looking ahead now, and we were talking about this just before the show, there's a lot of uncertainty in the market right now. What are the key things that are worrying you?
I think if you look at the key uncertainties in the market, it is a result of a couple of factors. Some of them are known since the beginning of the year. For instance, the inflation concerns that will hit most businesses, resulting in higher costs. I think the uncertainty that nobody was prepared for, or everybody was very not well prepared for, was the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which resulted in further surges of energy prices and as well as commodity prices. Given that these two affected countries do supply a lot of key commodities like sunflower oil, fertilizers, as well as the wheat flour. They are big suppliers. So this is something that the whole market has not accounted for, and that resulted in a lot of turbulence as well as market volatility after the event actually occurred. So going forward, like what you mentioned, there are a couple of positive factors that I see could be at play. One is definitely a recovery play, led by the United States, given that the reopening in United States, in United Kingdom, as well as Europe, followed by Asia Pacific. Most of Asia Pacific are actually already started the recovery play process from the pandemic, which is good. And then the other positive factors we could look at apart from the recovery play is definitely hopefully the management of the virus. That is if we have positive news going forward, I think it's going to be good for economy on the whole. And with the rising interest rates, as long as most of these countries do not slip into a recessionary growth, I think the inflation could be managed over the long run. And let's hope the central banks will get their act together to achieve this. I think these are all the positive factors. The biggest uncertainty now, I think, for Asia Pacific is, and it will affect, because when China sneezes, right, the rest of the nations, smaller nations, will be affected, is how does the COVID situations come into full play, as China now realize that with the Omicron variant, it is actually very difficult to control. For example, in Shanghai, I think more than 85% of the cases actually have no symptoms. And unless you keep locking down your city and conduct massive, swab tests, which is very, very detrimental to your economy, right? Then you'll be able to identify, the COVID positive guys, and you're going to quarantine them, and that will result in huge, economic implications. For example, China is a big global supply chain provider, and even items coming to construction items coming to Singapore will be affected. So it is a big uncertainty for China and how it plays out in terms of the management of COVID-19.
Now, Kian Soon, as always, thank you very much for taking your time to speak to us.
You're most welcome.
Now, we've been speaking to Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, on Biztech's Asian Midday Market Watch, powered by Al Rajhi Bank, Malaysia. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as Al Rajhi Bank's social media platforms. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.